Alexa Office on. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's stream. Thank you all for joining me. So today is a special day. It's my 50th stream. You can imagine that. So for the last almost year now, I guess it's even been more than a year, because there was some breaks in there. So I guess it's been more than a year now. We've been live streaming almost weekly, and there's 100 hours now of content. So if you're new to the stream and new to my channel or the CG Spectrum channel, again, please like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. But again, if you're new here or haven't been, checking out my live streams in the past, there is now officially 50 episodes or 100 hours of content out there about game design, game production. So hopefully you all have been enjoying it and learning something from it and getting some good nuggets there. Thanks, Big Lob. Good to see you. Hi, I'll say Walaya. So nice to meet you too. Thanks for joining us. I think you're new here, or at least I haven't seen your name before. So today we're going to do just a little bit of a little easier episode, I guess, on me. For me, the live streams are always a little hard. I get up here with very little preparation, and I usually talk for 2 hours straight, and they're a bit mind-numbing and hard on the body, mind, and soul. So we're going to take a little bit of a break today, but I'm going to try and also teach something today as we go. And so today, the thought is we're going to explore survival games, but with a specific kind of twist to it. And so I've been talking about creative direction the last few weeks. And last week we talked about writing. The week before that, different things like level design. And we've been talking about kind of different aspects of what it is to be a creative director, right? And so, a lot of my class and course is about kind of the more entry level, like how do I get in and become a game designer? And I thought it'd be good to kind of have a series about creative direction in general. And a creative director, for those of you who don't know, or a project director, we often have different names. we're the guy that has to keep kind of that bigger picture in our head of what the game is. And it requires a kind of a different set of skills. You really have to be able to sort of look at the big picture of a game and understand, like, how is a game, going to be successful, right? When all the components come together. Because quite often, like a level designer, you might just be focused on that one level, and your little piece, a little tiny bit maybe of what the whole thing and how it fits together. But you're often, very isolated in your one little, we call it silo, right? And you're often siloed in that. And that's a big problem, or it can be a big problem in a lot of teams, especially as the teams get bigger and bigger. They get more and more siloed, and so each person or group or pod, whatever they want to call it, that is working on that feature quite often is, they're not seeing the whole big picture, right? And so creative directors are that guy that's hopefully trying to bring all those pieces together and make it all work in a more cohesive manner. And so part of that is you're often usually, the guy who either comes up with the original idea or takes an idea and then tries to refine it into an actual, like, playable, buildable game, something that's not only going to be fun, but something that's also going to be something we can build in the time we have. And so the ideation of that, and, like, how do we come up with a new idea, and where do we evolve it? How do we do the research to, like, kind of understand what do we want to do and why do we want to do it is really important, and it's a big part of our job. So whether you are starting off in game design and you're new, or you're the most senior person, like, the ideation part's always really hard. There's never a really clear way of, like, well, how much do I make original and how much do I use genre specific things. Like, if I'm doing a first person shooter, like, how much do I use from all the other genres, other games that are in that same genre? How much do I use? How much do I differentiate? All these things are very, very nuanced, right? And so it can be a challenge. Hey, Alexios, good to see you again. Thanks for coming back. And and again, everybody, please ask questions today. Even when I'm playing and whatnot, I'm going to be kind of doing a running stream of consciousness again. Today we're going to be starting with an idea that I have, a game concept that I've been mulling around in my head for a long time now. I've actually written up some previous designs on this and things, and so I wanted to kind of run you guys through this mindset of, like, where do I start? How do I get started in this kind of a game? Now, I'm calling it a survival game. It's really kind of like a survival simulation, really is what's kind of in my mind. And so I'll start with kind of here. Let me just increase the size here a little bit. All right. And, these are all a little bit gray area in here, but so part of, again, these are my own just so you know, these are my own self-constrained ideas, and I'll get into a really quick why before we just get in and start playing. But I had this idea of kind of a post-apocalyptic game, that I want to build, and I really like survival games, but your typical first-person survival games, to me, I think that genre is getting, like, really hyper-saturated. And if you look at, like, Valheim and some of the new games, they're incredible. They're doing really good. Games like Ark and stuff have been around forever. They're working on Ark 2 now. There's literally hundreds, if not thousands, of survival games out there when you talk about your traditional FPS kind of, I'm in a big world and I'm going to go out and do those things. And personally, as a game designer, I'm kind of getting a little annoyed that, like, they're all kind of the same. Like, I mean, I've been researching a bunch of them, and they're kind of like, yeah, kind of like same old, and not terribly exciting to me. So I want to try to push it just a little bit farther and try to go a little bit more. And so one of the things is I want to try is so I want to do a group thing where, I where I use kind of a group of people instead of just a single individual, right? And so that's something that is important to me. And then, but part of what I want to do, already in my own mind, and the reason I'm choosing certain decisions is that, let's call this. So, all right. So part of the choices that I'm making here is that I know right now, like, to make this game, I probably would not be given the budget and the time that I would really truly want to make this a great game. The survival genre is still a little bit niche, but what I'm doing here, and also a phrase here is I'm trying to define, AAA is on one side, like high budget, big teams. Indie is over here with, very low budget, low teams, which allow you to experiment and try new things. But nobody's really done too much kind of in the middle. And so I'm going to be looking at some games that are kind of in that middle range of, like, how do we build, in my mind, in my hope, something that can be achievable with a smaller team and a smaller budget. Maybe the same amount of time. It still could be a 24-month development cycle or something. And I know if you're new to game design, you won't always know, like, exactly the budgets and stuff. But I'm letting you guys know my thought process and stuff here, so that when I'm getting started, I've already kind of limited, and I've started to build my box. Right, I've started to kind of say, like, here's this box I'm going to stay in when I want to play, and so. So the main game that I'm going to start with today is This War of Mine, and it's really the main inspiration for where I like this kind of game. And the reason I'm doing this again is I think that I can build, or my team and I can build the world, meaning the 2.5D or side scroller type game that we'll see here in a minute, probably cheaper. A lot more reusable ideas, and so I'm trying to come up with ways of reducing that scope and scale. So Big Glob, so a survival group that makes a community kind of thing. Kind of like State of Decay. So yes, I love State of Decay. Actually, my cousin Dave is actually the art lead on State of Decay. State of Decay 2, and so I'm very, very familiar with State of Decay. But their budget is totally AAA, big team, big budget, kind of project, especially even more since Microsoft bought them. And so while I love the big open world games and open world streaming and all those kind of things, and State of Decay is pretty awesome, it's, I think, in my opinion, beyond what this game is in my mind. Now, it is definitely a reference game, and in fact, I need to go back and play it some more and even look at it from a different perspective right now, because I think it can still inspire a lot of what I want to do, right, and things. And so so today you'll see kind of on my desktop here, I bought and installed a few games today. I have peeked at some of these games, but I really have not played them much. This War of Mine I played a while back. But I have not played it in a few years, so I'm kind of coming back into it as a refresh and reset. But I have watched a few videos on these, and they seem to be inspiring me. Fallout Shelter was one I played on mobile quite a bit, but have not played it in years, and I've not played it on PC. So right now, the games that are, in my mind, most similar to what I'm trying to do are This War of Mine, RimWorld, Oxygen Not Included, Fallout Shelter, a game called Sheltered, which I found that Sheltered 2 is about to come out actually just in a couple weeks. So I wish I was able to play Sheltered 2. I did watch some videos on it, but the core game loops and stuff seem to be relatively the same, so I think that's okay. And then a game called Starbound. So those are the games currently on my hit list of inspiration, right? And even though they're not all side scrollers, in fact, I think Sheltered is a side scroller, Fallout Shelter is a side scroller, and This War of Mine is. The others are actually, I think Oxygen Not Included is a side scroller as well. So again, it doesn't necessarily have to be side scrolling, but that's where I'm kind of starting here. As a way to limit my, I also want something simple to play. Now my, just as well, but possibly mobile friendly. I do like that This War of Mine stuff did come out on mobile and was fairly good there. Hi, excuse me, welcome. So again, just kind of giving you guys this, how am I thinking about this problem, right? How am I going about it? How did I choose these games, right? And so this was done off some just preliminary, like, hey, I kind of like what these guys did over here. But I don't want, like in This War of Mine, I like the group mechanics. I like how they do side scrolling. We'll get into kind of like what I'm liking and not liking. But I do not want to try to replicate their system when it comes to like their day-night system and how they kind of have 2 phases each day. I do not want to try to replicate like their kind of the horrors of war and what's it like for civilians to be trapped in there. That's not necessarily in my interest, area that could come about. And I do want a gritty, realistic story that has some depth to it. I am edging towards put this here. Probably zombie apocalypse. So something that could be where you're again kind of stuck in the maybe not quite the Fallout Shelter like post nuclear war kind of thing, but I think I do like how in This War of Mine, at least, how they have like your main base and then they have other locations you can go. You don't free form explore the whole world. You're exploring locations, right? And those locations all have purpose and all have something there that you need. So that's something I want to kind of explore a little bit. So anyways, this kind of gives you the context of kind of what I'm thinking. And again, all of this is completely work in progress. All of this is about showing you kind of the thought process of how I go about evaluating a game, looking at a game, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take notes as we play and kind of just like use this as a brainstorming tool, and be like, oh, well, okay, I can do this, I can do that, right? And just ideas, kind of random list of like what I like and don't like about these games, right? And so again, as a hi Felix, welcome from Chicago. Again, the point of all of this is just to kind of see what I like and don't like, and I think another big factor in here that I'm seeing, another key differentiator is so one of the things I'm seeing a lot of in these games is they're either like very, very, very randomized. So this War of Mine has some replayability and some randomization, I can tell, but maybe it's got more than I realize. But it's it's a little bit more designer story driven, right, and things like that. Versus if you go into games like RimWorld, RimWorld is definitely and I believe Oxygen Not Included as well. Most of those are randomly generated worlds, and levels and events and stories and things like that. And so they do tend to have a very different, they're not as designer driven in their stories. It doesn't mean that they do bad at stories, but they're kind of a whole nother level of complexity there and stuff. And so I am still kind of evaluating at what point. It's not a black or white, like, like designer driven, randomized, right? This can be a gradated of some amount of each, to figure out, like, how do I make stories that are really compelling, and that's something that's there. In fact, actually, I forgot to mention here is that I want to do more of an RPG. So Wilala, sorry, botching your name. Would you focus on the story taking place in different places, or would you focus also on the travel between these places? So, in this particular game that's currently in my head, and again, could be, we may by the end of the day, or a week from now or whatever, when I'm working on these things, I may completely throw out all my initial preconceptions of the initial paths I go down, and I may end up going down 5 or 10 or 20 paths sometimes, and I'll go down it for hours or days, and like, boom, hit a wall, and like, okay, that's just not a good idea, right? And you have to be willing to, at some point, walk away from your bad ideas. So be careful of that. I think as a creative director, that's something that is definitely hard. We get kind of into this lump sum cost problem of when we've invested a certain amount of time, a certain amount of energy, and a certain amount of even just money, whether that's our own salary or, we start hiring concept artists or whatever. I mean, even if it's the company money, right? Like, there's a certain point where suddenly it gets harder and harder and harder for us to walk away from ideas, and so I try to move very quickly in this, and so right now there is absolutely no right or wrongs. And in fact, in the course of today's conversation, tell me what you like. Tell me, what you guys like best, and I want to hear from you as well. Now that we're sharing, what people like within it. Do you like more randomly generated stories that become more player stories? Do you like more handcrafted, designer-driven, very strong, stories on the other hand? Or do you like some combination thereof? Like, what makes you happy in stories? But I think, to answer your point, the focus on the travel between these places isn't really, as far as you're talking about for story, so I imagine that there's discrete, we'll call them levels right now, or areas of the game, right? And or locations. And so I imagine that we start with a couple, we start with our home, or we start with some place that's close to home, and we eventually get to our base if we don't start there pretty quickly. And then, from there, it's kind of hub and spoke, right? Where we then learn about, maybe through information, maybe through some sensors, maybe through, looking on a map or whatever that is, that we learn about new locations. And so over time, new locations become, unlocked for us. And those locations could have, each one has a risk reward, right? Like, so you have to decide, like, is this one worth going to? Because I probably can die. And the person I'm sitting there probably could die, right? And especially, remember, we're trying to do multiple characters, and so the player is a character, but the player could also send somebody off to a really dangerous mission, and then you may lose them, and there may be kind of a permadeath, at least for that particular character. So I think that the stories are, each location, I think, in my mind, has a story. It has a subplot. I think it's all kind of part of, one of the reasons I like a lot of the zombie stories and stuff, The Walking Dead or things like that, is, yeah, like, bad stuff could happen on a path. Like, you could have, a journey, right? They're going from one town to somebody's house, or they're going to do whatever, and it may take days or weeks to walk there. And then along that way, they may encounter some bad guys or some zombies or some harsh conditions or things like that. But really, the core of the story tends to be at these important locations. Now, they may be traveling to a location, get halfway, and have a new location suddenly sort of appear, and that, they didn't realize they were walking through a town that was not supposed to be a town that had anybody in it or whatever, and then suddenly something bad happens and they could get trapped in that town. So I think things like that could be kind of cool and fun. But it really is about stories around those locations, and then I'm, hoping that it's all under a bigger umbrella. But I'm not really today worrying about story per se, other than I wanted to make a very story-driven game. I want to make, stories happen amongst all these different characters and make it so that, all these different characters matter. And so that's something I'm definitely trying to play with. So, first of all, I want to show you. So one of the first things I did was I Googled this. Let's pull it out. So, one of the things you can do if you really like, a particular game is just, Google games similar to such and such, right? And it's amazing how many lists have been sorted out there. I suspect some of these lists are randomly generated by bot kind of things that they're used to get traffic. I don't know how much of this, this Ben Baker guy that wrote this, supposedly, I don't know. I find some of these lists are very, very similar, and which makes me think that that they're using bots, or they see somebody else's list and they just kind of write a bot that scrapes it and takes it off onto their own. So be careful, how much of this. Some of this is probably taken off of metadata. Even if you go into Steam, for example, you'll notice that it has a lot of metadata, and they'll often have other games like this, and then you're like, what the heck? None of these games are anything like that game, right? And it's just, it can be a challenge, right? So I'm not saying that all these are great games to look at, but this is a technique, for finding other games that are similar, right? Now, again, remember, one of my criteria for this whole project is that I'm trying to figure out, how do I make a non-indie game, meaning higher budget, but how do I make something that's smaller and cheaper than a big, huge AAA game? And so, again, I am purposely looking for a lot of kind of shortcuts and a lot of things that would allow me to make the game a little faster, a little cheaper, and things like that. 1 second here. Without, breaking the bank. And so if you look at some of the games like Sheltered, they were pretty low budget, and so I would definitely put Sheltered in that indie category. And I think that RimWorld and Oxygen Not Included were technically indie, although those have sold really, really well. I think, let's see, I have it up on another screen here. 1 second. So this War of Mine, just looking at PC sales right now alone, I had done some research before. This War of Mine sold 2.2 million copies. RimWorld, 2.7 million. Games like Don't Starve, which are really single player, but still survival, kind of unique survival, a little over 10 million. Another game, Starbound, 4.4. Fallout Shelter on PC alone has done 6.7 million, and I think on mobile it did like 40 million or something downloads. And then Oxygen Not Included, 1.9 million. So you can see there's a number of respectable titles kind of in that 1.5 to 2 million or more range that ultimately is what I'm trying to prove that this game can do. There's one last bit of kind of advice of how to kind of work backwards. Something you can kind of do back of the napkin, and I hate to design this way sometimes, but ultimately in the end we are a business, right? And so designing we have to prove that our ideas are going to be something that people want to buy, right? And they want to sell. And so when I was doing research on some of these games and actually using this list here, some of these games, I don't remember if Displaced was one of them or not, but I think it was. Some of these only had in the neighborhood of 30 to 50,000 units sold. So that squarely kind of puts them into the indie category, at least in sales. And I suspect it was that way in budget as well. And so you need to be careful, and that you might have, you might see an indie game and you just think oh my God, I'd love to make that game. But if there's not a target market for it, if there's not an audience for it that's going to buy it, it's really hard unless you're going to do that for an indie budget. If you're going to make the game for, say, $100,000, a couple $100,000, that's one thing, right? But when you start having to make a game for $5 to $10 million, you can kind of start to do the math. I mean, I won't get into making P&Ls today. Maybe that's task for another day. But back in the napkin kind of math, you can start to say like, okay, well, if I need to make at least say $10 million, and really, and that doesn't include marketing. So now I need maybe another $5 or $10 million for marketing, and I need some profit. So let's just call it for now $25 million that I need to make. And if I'm going to sell a game for, let's say, $30, and then, Steam takes its 30% out, other people do it. So let's just say even that I make $25 just profit off of whatever is there. So maybe the game's $40, and then, and I basically profit 25 out of that. So then to make $25 million, I need to sell 1 million copies of my game. So this is really, really rough math. I'm not trying to make this as a legitimate thing here, but I'm trying to kind of show you guys as designers, we often need to be kind of fiscally responsible for like, how's our ideas going to sell, right? And so, but at the same hand, we don't necessarily like, I don't want to go, make our one example be like Fallout Shelter and be like, well, it did 40 million on mobile and it did 6.7 here. So we'll just call it 50 million copies. Like, well, we're going to sell 50 million copies, at $25 a piece. And, we're all going to, go buy our own private island afterwards because we're so wealthy, right? Like, we don't want to be naive that way. We need to figure out what we call it break even is and stuff. And so we have to temper our design ideas by this break even a lot of times, so that just being aware of when we're looking to do something new, we're looking to kind of innovate slightly. And so even though This War of Mine is a really solid game, it's still an indie product, or relatively indie. Again, they're kind of in that like, A-y category as far as like costs and stuff. I don't know what the original This War of Mine cost to produce. The 11-bit studios who makes This War of Mine recently did just release a article stating that they are spending, it was 15.3 million, something like that, 15 million and change on 3 new games. And so that tells me that they are spending roughly $5 million per game. And I think the article even said they're doing a new like This War of Mine sequel or something. So you can guess that they're spending about $5 million on the development of that. And so, they've had really good sales on it across all the platforms and stuff. Because remember, this 2.2 million copies, that was just PC Steam, right? That doesn't include GOG. It doesn't include all the other PC, maybe the Epic Store, wherever else they're selling. And I know that they also released console versions, and they also released, I think there was even a handheld version on the Switch and stuff. So, they have made more money in other places. They also have done really, really, really good at expansion packs. And they've had a ton of expansion packs for it as well. So, again, they are obviously monetizing pretty well. But it's still somewhat of an indie product. It's right in that borderline of like, it's definitely not quite what we consider AA, definitely not AAA, but it's still a step above indie, right? So that's kind of my mindset. So hopefully that makes sense. And again, like this article here, there's a bunch of different games I just kind of went and looked at. So Big Lob, here's your State of Decay, which is definitely on the list. So you're dead on in your assumption there. So here was RimWorld, Project Zomboid, and you can see some of these get very indie very quickly in that they're, the graphics is really the big tell on these, and stuff. Here is Sheltered. So Sheltered is fairly similar. Papers, Please was one of the most bizarre games I've ever seen. That was definitely like a very, very... I didn't try to play it yet, but I watched some of the videos and was like, whoa, that's a game? Like, what is it? Definitely very strange. Dead in Bermuda looked interesting, but again, it was one of those ones that only sold like, I think 15,000 copies. And then Zafe House Diaries. I think there's a Zafe House Diaries 2. Also Also was very similar to This War of Mine, but again was one of those that had only sold in the 30,000 category. And so there's lots of different variants. Rebuild 3 looked interesting to me, but it seems like it was a bit more of a 4X simulation game, and so it crossed into that realm. So, even this is saying more grander, more strategic than This War of Mine. So it's going down that strategic tactical path, and I'm trying to go more towards an RPG path. Doesn't mean that I don't come back over that side at some point, but that's kind of why that's not on there. Distress was actually very interesting. That's one I probably should play as well. This was actually looked very interesting. It takes place on a frozen wasteland kind of thing, and it's kind of like the movie The Thing. If you guys remember John Carpenter's The Thing movie from back in my childhood, which was an amazing movie. In fact, that's something I want to watch again. It makes me think about it. But Kurt Russell and the guys are trapped in this Arctic base, and there's something taking control of. There's an alien that's basically like a shapeshifter and can take control of different people, and you have to kind of figure out who's there. So this one was very interesting because you don't know who to trust, and it had some interesting things, but again, still very very different. Orphanage got a little too indie again for me. And then Beholder was just a really different game in that this one you actually played as like the villain and stuff. So anyways, just using that as an example. Oh, and then the number 1 is Frostpunk, which is also by this, if you don't know, is by 11-Bit Studios, the same people who made This War of Mine. So they have definitely an interesting take. If you're into simulation games, and again, this is really more of a sim, but you could see where they probably, I assume, reuse some technology, reuse some AI and certain things, when they, in between Frostpunk and This War of Mine. So it's a very unique strategy game. And I'll call it more of a strategy game, much more of a strategy game than This War of Mine. It does bring in, I think, some of the characters and personalities, and how do you make it a society survive, right? But it's a very interesting premise, where you got to keep this giant ship working, this giant what do you call it? It's like the engine. It's like a heater, like a thing. It keeps your whole like city working, right? And if that thing dies, basically your city dies and stuff. So, anyways, just to let you know, that's sort of again, some brainstorming techniques for how to look at games and stuff. But let me shut up now and let me play. Again, if you guys have comments, please keep chatting. We are going to jump in and play This War of Mine for those of you that haven't done it. And I'm going to kind of, again, if you've seen some of my past live streams, I've done this a few times where I'm kind of live critiquing games and trying to help you as a game designer or potential game designer learn how to look at and analyze games, and to make you realize that this is the good and the bad about being a game designer, and that we often we often lose our love for video games at some levels because we start to play the games, and we have to analyze them so much that ultimately in the end we don't get to actually like enjoy the games. Yep, just like the first challenge. So it's harder than you think sometimes to really understand that every single choice in these games was probably was somebody's conscious decision, right? These things didn't necessarily get randomly thrown in there. Now, whether those are well-made decisions or whether they just happen to kind of randomly happen, I mean, I have seen that happen on games where things just kind of had to happen a certain way because of the time, the budget, the technology, limitations, resources, other kinds of issues. And so those things are more challenging to understand, especially with indie games. That can be even more challenging. to kind of understand, and so that's something that you have to kind of try to figure out. But now, hopefully, my video here doesn't block too much of it. If it does, let me know, and I'll shrink down the game screen a little bit, so you don't have to look at my ugly face. I don't know if... Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think I have this with just game only, but that's all right. All right. So I just started a game before, and I literally did absolutely nothing in it. I just did start a new game. So we'll continue this. I don't know. Alright, so I turned off the music just to make sure that we didn't get banned on any of the platforms. Alright, so part of what I liked, I felt that this War of Mine had a really cool artistic, they have this kind of penciled, charcoaled, kind of style in it, which I thought was very fitting. It's kind of dark and dreary and things, which really fit their game a lot. I definitely do not want that. And so I'm not going to try and solve my art equation, the problem right now about how to make this thing distinct, other than to take notes and just say that, like, my take on this is I personally really like the fact that if you look at one of their screenshots or you look at some of the stuff in their game, it's very recognizable. I can generally look at any screenshot of their game and know exactly what it is, right? And so it definitely, at least to me, 9 times out of 10 stands out as a fairly unique thing. Now, I do like that they have like the different people. So you can kind of click on them and see different things. You can click on their bios. That's where it says drag for more, but anyways, it does not let me drag for more. Well, maybe there is no more right now, so. So you'll see, like, right off the start, even as we started the game, you'll see the key attributes of who they are, and then like what their current status is, or something that's important that's in a negative is kind of in the orange. And so, this guy is obviously going to be important to me because I need to scavenge a lot in this game. I know that scavenging is very important to this game, and so that's something that's there. This guy, is a good cook, and he's just hanging out, and there's nothing special, but it sounds like he'll be somebody that's good to stay here. I know that if I remember, cooking and keeping everybody fed is really important, and that's something to keep an eye on. And then this guy, even off the top of the, even the very start of the game, right? He starts off as slightly sick. The same way that this guy's starting off as slightly wounded, right? So it's not even like most games would start you off like perfectly healthy and like everything's great and hunky-dory. And I like how this War of Mine kind of embraces, even from the minute, that you're already kind of in this, right? You're not just sort of like arriving, hey, it's day one, and like everybody's healthy and happy and and stuff. So it's interesting to kind of see that. And then, so his main attributes, he's a good runner, or a fast runner. Now, in the context of this, I'm not quite sure what a good runner is going to mean. I would assume that as I go off and do my nighttime things, that if I get in trouble, I can get the heck out of there a lot faster. So it's kind of interesting to sort of see. Let's see here. And then you'll notice the next thing. So obviously I can scroll around a map. You'll see that there's some above ground levels, and there's even 2 stories down below ground. I can see that there's ladders and there's stairways, and there's even here like holes in the floor. And so I know from past experiences, you've got at least those 3 manners, if not others, to traverse different things in the game. And so you have to kind of be aware of that, because you might not see, if I'm like right at this camera angle here, I actually don't quite see that hole in the floor. If I came up here, down there I do. Now, that doesn't really matter at some levels, because, so clicking, double clicking, he's moving. Now what's interesting is there's only a half ladder here. Oh, that's why. So again, camera perspective here as it skews down. That's what I'm seeing there. And then you'll notice that, like for me, now I do real quick notice I like the little quips that they're, these little voice dialogues of kind of things they're telling you, things they're explaining to you, over their heads. So that's kind of interesting. Again, these things here. So that's just improving my workshop. Now, one of the things I don't like, I guess you'd learn these icons over time, is that, like, if I don't know, being a new player right now, if I don't know what these things are, I would have probably put a mouse over on these things that allow me to know what this thing was going to be. Oh, Big Lob, I just noticed your question was Don't Starve on that list. Yeah, so Don't Starve was on my main list, and it had 10.1 million downloads, so it's definitely high up on the list. Although a bunch of people have tried to kind of copy Don't Starve, and have kind of had minimal success there and stuff. But whoops. So that's actually an interesting thing here, an interesting dilemma. When I'm in that daytime mode, it ended, right? I had a certain amount of time to do. It wasn't just, it's not turn-based. Literally, I had a certain amount of time before it just transitioned me to like, oh, it's nighttime. Like, you're going to go out and do this thing. Now, I could plan to stay here, and all that. But I find that very fascinating in that, the amount of things that I could do. So I was busy jabbering with you guys, and I missed that whole daytime thing, which is going to hurt me because I didn't do any tasks during that. So at some point, I'm probably not going to do very good in this game because I'm off to a useless start. But that's one of the things you have to be aware of, right? Time is a resource in this. Time is something that has to be managed. So in here, you've got different stats of like, looks like how much inventory weight they can carry or items they can carry, kind of their base stats. And then you can also say like, okay, who's going to sleep? So right now I've got 2 guys assigned to sleep. So I'm going to take this guy and let's go scavenge with him. Now, all right, so it looks like it's only allowing me, for whatever reason, I can only take 1 guy with me here. So I got nothing in my main storage, but here I can kind of decide if I need to bring weapons with me or some other kind of thing with me, right? And then the primary purpose, if I remember right, for your nighttime is really just to scavenge. You're really out there looking for stuff to keep you alive. And again, for this game, you know, there's this day and night cycle. Now, one of my big questions is, how am I going to break this apart for in my particular game? Because this is a really key part of the game. Yeah, I don't like that there's no mouse over on these objects. You don't really know what they are until I put them here. Then I can see them, but you really have to learn the icons, which is not a very good design thing here. So I've got the exit thing here, and then you'll notice that my fog of war, so to speak, of where I can see. Is limited, right? They also have a little peek button here. So it lets me see. Now, if this door was closed, I wouldn't be able to see much in it, but I can see just a little tiny bit there. But, nope, let's come down. You notice that my guy is like pathfinding on his own as well. And so, everything takes a little bit of time. I'm just grabbing everything for now. Alright, so I'm running out of space now. This is all I've got space-wise. Uh-oh. So, okay, so I could see the description down here. One second. Yeah, so, sorry, about your name. My apologies. Yeah, so about the night and day system, you're looking at a way to demonstrate the progression through time. Yes, so I think part of this war of mine, what makes it interesting and different is that day-night system. I can only do so much during the day, so much during the night. They're two kind of different player experiences. There's managing during the day my people, managing my base for my house and all these kind of things. And at nighttime I go out and scavenge, and then I might get in fights, I might get injured. Things like that. And then as the game progresses, I know that they can get into things where people can raid your house and other things. But yeah, the challenge is, if I get rid of that system, like, how do I balance the what can I do, right? And if it's not day-night cycle and limiting my time, and these games often have a number of days that it progresses as well, and like certain things happen at certain days. So I'll notice that through a lot of different games of like what's going to happen, when you're playing the game, right? So I'm assuming these, are kind of like the beginner, more entry level kind of levels, and then But I'm assuming like you wouldn't have like I don't know if you play through this game again whether you get these exact same things, right? That's one of the interesting questions. Oh, there's food. So let's see. Sugar, clean water. Better get that. Let's see here. All right. So space 15 out of 15. So that's all I can do. So it looks like it's time to go. So in that particular case, I was able to use some time up. Again, this really is a time management game, right? Like I used some time up to open that door. You also notice this little so as I walk, notice I'm not seeing much. If I run, see that little circle that's going around me, that's how much noise radius, right? So really this is also a stealth game, for all intents and purposes. So they really are adding a lot of like stealth mechanics into this game. So you could go for a bigger scope, like weeks and months. That way you can make different goals for different stations of the year. Possibly. I think it's difficult in that, like, I'm trying to make something more intimate, more about the people, right? And so people exist day to day, and so it can be a challenge to figure out how to make it more intimate about that people and their daily struggles. And if time was passing over weeks and months, I'd say it turns a different route of more of a simulation, right? And so at least in my mind right now, I want something that's more about the people. Yeah, have them make decisions before jumping through time, possibly. But time jumps again, you kind of lose some of that intimate nature of like, how do I survive day to day? But yes, I think it's definitely something that we have to consider and we have to put on that list, right, of things to do. Now, in this particular case, how do I store stuff? Okay, so that allowed me to eat. That's, I think, clearing rubble, and this is like scavenging through stuff. Let me just try this up here. I think I'm about to jump through a hole, which is cool. And I'll... That's interesting. So I cannot move things back to... What I was looking for is how to move things back to like a storage unit that's here. Oh, okay, that was just a chair. Wait, no, that was the crafting area. Okay, that's my bed. So I'm still hungry, slightly wounded, and tired. So I definitely am not. So another one of the things you have to manage here is the day-to-day, because they're tired. And again, this is where while the fear for me comes into how do you balance it? If I can fast forward in time, then it starts to ruin some of the, like, well, how do I heal now? If we're all going to heal over time, you know, and stuff, then that becomes a different problem, right? And so that's something that we have to kind of think about. You know, this I'm tired, I'm slightly wounded, you know, I'm hungry. You know, those are things that if I fast forward in time, suddenly go away, or like, how do I manage that, right? That's at least my gut tells me that's not what I want. So I wonder how I cook now. So he even slept poorly. I know the trick is you gotta well, he was really fast. So I'm trying to find the stove. I don't see Big Lob, yeah. For your game, are you considering any changes when it's nighttime, like Dying Light, when the zombies become more aggressive, for example, rival gangs, etc.? Haven't thought that far ahead yet, so that's a great example of something that's a good idea to think about. You know, whether it's going to be something that's, you know, part of the game or not. I would hope so, but again, I don't know exactly how day-night cycles are going to work. And I think that's part of my big question, right? I think that I don't want to, you know, with this War of Mine being kind of my reference game, I don't want to just flat out copy this War of Mine, you know, and I like what they're doing, but I also, you know, want to make sure I'm distinct and unique. And so, you know, I need to look at some other games and see, like, okay, well, how do they time manage their games, and how do you determine how much per day, you know, can a player do? How does that, you know, change things? So how do I... So this is good that this brings up, if you guys have seen some thoughts. Our shelter is one depressingly ugly ruin. We should do something about it. And then it's basically giving you a bunch of ideas instead of just one thing. But says we only have one chair. We lack beds. We have to sleep on the floor. It's hard to get a good night's sleep on hard floor. Cold concrete. The condition of those who are sick or wounded may drastically worsen. We don't have a radio. We don't know what's going on in the city. We really miss books. Books can help us forget. You know, staying here is slightly better than living on the streets. Cigarettes per day they're using. Breaches in the walls, so it's not safe. So just things like that. So it gives you a whole bunch of, like, ooh, there's a bunch of things they do. Like, for example, here, I think this was the bed. So I'm missing components. But how do I take... Alright, well I guess this is what I'm doing. Alright. Now is this the same? Looks like it's the same level. So I like how they have lots of piles of rubble and stuff to look at, other things to examine. So I'm already getting low on space. So you can see at many levels this game is a simulation, right? We are doing things. We got to figure out like where to spend our resources, where to spend our time, where to, you know, in this particular case, I'm using one guy, taking one guy at a time with me, while the other two are doing some automated tasks. And quite often that's sleeping, but it could be gardening, it could be doing other stuff. But you know, at some levels, I'm like, okay, do I, you know, digging through this thing here might result in me finding some stuff to scavenge, but it's really about me getting over to this storage unit here. So I am assuming for now that, you know, hopefully the designers who made this game put something, you know, tasty or worthwhile, so that if I'm expending all this time trying to dig through here, that they're going to give me something worth the reward here. But you see, I'm still only about 3/4 of the way, you know, through this, so it's definitely a lot of extra work, but it's getting there. Almost done. Yay, we did it. Again, you can see kind of that fog of war. Oh, it's locked. And I forgot to bring the lockpick, which I almost grabbed, and I didn't. So, let's see if there's a lockpick up here. Alright, so I'm running low on that stuff. So how do I... Okay, so I guess it's telling me that I need a tool to get through that, which I can't currently do. So, Oops. You notice up here as well, I'm seeing something move. It's probably a rat, but it's showing me that there's little noise things here, so that's something that's worth making note of. Well, I think that's about all I can do here. So day 3 already. Oh, great. We got raided last night. Great. Marco is hurt. It looks like they stole food and water. Great. Well, I think that's good for now. I think we've gotten kind of a rough idea of what this game is like. You guys have kind of seen, the first 2 days. It obviously gets a lot deeper. And again, it's this constant thing of like, okay, I can only bring back so many resources. You can see I went to that one building for 2 nights, now I do have other things. So here's our shelter. Here's what I was going to there. Ruined Village. And it kind of tells you lots of food, materials, weapons, parts. This one's got meds. Weapons. Caution advised, so probably dangerous. So let's try that one. So I grabbed a lockpick. We'll do one last thing here to show you a different nighttime level. Yeah, my guy's not doing very good. He's hunched over, slept poorly, hungry, slightly sick, wounded. I don't know. I was trying to see how I could eat. Looks like I can't do it during the night. Uh-oh. So this guy's home. And I'm just going to go in and see what I can do. He's coming down. Private property. Let's hope this guy doesn't have a gun. I'm currently stealing from him. I suspect he's going to come back with a gun. So he's running up here, and I suspect he's going to go there, so... So he's either just hiding from me, but if he starts coming back, then I suspect he's going to come back with a gun, and I'm going to... Oh, where'd that guy go? Make sure I don't get shot here. Alright, I'm gonna get out of here. Anyways, that's this war of mine. So let's try a different game. Yeah, it's definitely a very, very slow game. This is not supposed to be a game that's really actiony. There is some tension in there, which I do like, but it's definitely not an action game. So that's for sure. All right, here. Let's try Shelter to show a more indie version of the same kind of thing. But this one's also kind of if I remember right, is more it's indie, but it's a little bit more post-apocalyptic. I think this was supposed to be kind of Fallout Shelter again. But this is one I have not played, so... We'll do the tutorial real quick, so I'm not a complete idiot while I'm playing this. But again, what I found in some of these games is, and kind of like some of the survival games also, is just like they have these really deep crafting systems. Alright, so there's a really annoying hum. I wonder if that's part of the game, or is that like... Oh, I think it's this... Okay, so... But you can see kind of the level of quality and the polish is kind of to just show you the difference between this War of Mine, you know, and a more indie title. And just even on the art side, it's just really, you know, on the UI UX side and stuff, shows just what a difference, you know, the differences make, right? I'm going to send her over to fix the generator. Drink water. Yeah, even the interface design on this is definitely not as polished as the rest. I'm not sure exactly what I'm supposed to do here. So it looks like he's a little thirsty, hungry, kind of worried about all stuff. He's got to go potty. So if they both work on the doors. That does not look very safe up there. Again, like, okay, that's counting up. I don't know what the time difference to day 2 is. But it looks like here I can speed up and slow down the time. So eventually it's like I gotta do a lot of scavenging to get this thing built up, and then I can do some kind of expeditions with it. Well, these jobs are a little bit slow. Okay, so there is a hazmat suit that we can use to go up top. So who's tired? How do I sleep? I don't know where I'm supposed to sleep at. But yeah, what a difference in the experience here. Definitely. Looks like I'm just about done there, though. Good. Not sure what's going on with those doors. Don't know how to sleep. Alright, well, I think we're gonna call this one a day. Yeah, well, yeah, so for a tutorial, it'll be better to make the player use different things to help him understand or give a brief explanation, let him explore the different mechanics. Yes, I 100% agree. This is a horrible, horrible, horrible tutorial. There's not much context here. It's telling me things like to sleep, but I don't even know how to sleep. I don't know where to sleep, and all that kind of stuff. So, yes, not good. Especially on easy. Alright, eject, eject, eject. Let's try oxygen not included. This is done pretty well. This is almost 2 million in sales on I'm So this again one I have not played yet, so we'll see. This is a randomly generated world, if I remember right, as well. So, I'm not going to spend any time caring about my characters right now. Alert! I've woken to the target location, but colonization efforts have already hit a hitch. Trapped many miles underground instead. Prepare to establish a colony here and mounting efforts to escape. So he's got all sorts of stats here. I'm not quite sure what to do with this thing, but let's see here. So survive 200 cycles, maintain 16 morale, print 12 duplicates, have a great monument. Huh. So how do I get out of here? So I don't even have raw materials to build a ladder. This interface is very bizarre here. So I have no clue in this game what to do or how to do it. Like, this is very interesting. I just don't even have a clue on this game what I'm supposed to be doing. It's just so bizarre. Ah, okay, there's Dig. Thanks, Eugene. Didn't even see that down there. Are these little... Can my guys jump up there? Oh. Okay, at least they found something to eat. Yes, this is very different. Like, it's a little bit unclear how to keep them happy. Looks like they're tired. Oh. Looks like they're going to sleep on the ground. Okay, so I speed up time here. Alright. Okay, so that's a hard surface there. Let's see. Alright, so alright, so what I need to do. Not sure what happened to these guys. Uh-oh. I was worrying about this, if this water was gonna fill up here. Alright, probably not the best place to put an outhouse. Yeah, so it's interesting, you know, from a game design perspective. Definitely a very, very, very different experience from this War of Mine. Definitely a game I'll have to come check out some more of. But definitely not like a big story-driven thing, but it has some interesting properties here. But I'm not sure that I want to have like things like the outhouse and stuff like that, you know, where I'm going to manage them, like going to the bathroom and things like that. All kinds of fluid dynamics. So this reminds me more of like a multiplayer or multi-character Terraria, something like that. So, all right. Let's check out Starbound. We're down to about 10 minutes left. We'll just put a few minutes into Starbound and Another game I have not tried, so we'll see what Starbound is like. But so far, this War of Mine is definitely the experience I'm after. These other ones have not been all that compelling. They've either been really rough around the edges, hence some of the indie stuff, graphics quality, a lot of pixel art, things like that. I definitely want more hyper-realistic, art styles and things like that. Good morning, graduate. You've overslept. Press A or D to get out of bed. To interact with a nearby person, door, or other object, you should hover over it with your cursor and press E. Uh-oh. Don't look. Cover that up. No, don't look. I'm going. Now this interface again, the controls. Wait, I didn't wipe. I have to mouse over something and then press E button to interact. Definitely not very player friendly. Why can't I not click? Oops. Well, I'm really surprised in this day and age there's a game that does not have very keyboard driven. Wow, definitely not the experience I was hoping for. Okay. So a little bit of a cutscene, I guess, here. There's my little pickaxe Terraria thing. Here's a ceiling is collapsed. The matter manipulator may be used to clear the dirt. Press the R key to equip it. Alright. I'm very, very slowly sitting here and cleaning. Nothing like really bad keyboard controls that you're trying to... Alright, I do not know where it wants me to go. Well, it seemed to be the logical next place, but... Great. Was there a ladder? Is that the ladder there? Ah. Wow, bad controls. That was pretty horrible. Alright, I'm done. Really horribly bad. No sirens and a headache. Do not go well together. So, anyways, I guess the good and the bad of what I learned today, you know, and sorry for those of you, and thank you for those of you that have stayed here and are still awake and paying attention. I know this is probably incredibly horribly boring, but this is part of the research that we go through as a game designer, right? We need to play the good games and the bad games. This is definitely something I recommend. Like, don't just go play the big AAA games, that are the best. Like, go even play these bad games. And, I probably, in a normal world, would have played these a little bit more. The good thing for me right now in my mind is that, like, This War of Mine games, the research I spent a day or so doing, and ideas and looking at those things, like, I just don't see anything like what I want to do, right? I love the quality of This War of Mine, the art and the experience overall, even though it's a little slow. I just find it's very unique, and these other ones that are claiming to be kind of similar and stuff just aren't quite there. And they're very randomized and just kind of I don't know, they just don't have the same appeal, the quality level as we saw both in Sheltered and Starbound and stuff, or in Oxygen Not Included, or just like exponentially lower, right? They're very, very, very indie in my opinion. So, like, there's opportunity in that middle ground, and I don't even know if there's been a big AAA game in this space, right? There's been big AAA, I would call single player survival games with one character, and I still have not seen a great group survival game where I've got to keep a group of people alive and things like that. So it's definitely a space that I think has opportunity, and that's why it's interesting to me, because I think there's a lot we could do with that, of like, how do you make surviving a zombie apocalypse or something like that really fun and interesting. Again, like, I've seen some mobile games that kind of do it, but then they get into more of the just repetitive shooter or combat mechanics and stuff. So anyways, that's why, at least in my mind, I think there's some opportunity there. So thanks everybody for joining in this week, and remember, next week is a holiday, so we will not be streaming next week, and then we will get back to our irregularly scheduled programming the following week. So everybody be safe and have a great next couple weeks. Take care now.